Good evening, and welcome to the St. Petersburg By Night podcasting network. Tonight, we present to you our behind-the-scenes special, After Dark.
Welcome back, everyone, to the St. Pete by Night Twitch stream where we play St. Petersburg by Night, a massive multiplayer 5th edition chronicle set in the world of darkness in St. Petersburg, Florida. My name is Kent, also known as Michikent on all social media. You could go follow me there, but really I don't post anything anymore. What you should do is you should go follow St. Pete by Night on all the social medias that you see down below. And if you are interested in tonight's conversation that we are about to have, and haven't joined our community yet, you should probably go ahead and do that. There's a Discord link down below here on Twitch and over on YouTube where you can join the community and become part of this amazing, amazing environment we have created where we celebrate all things World of Darkness. Here on After Dark, we go behind the scenes. We draw back the curtain, the veil, the shroud, whatever term you wish to use, and we look at what makes St. Pete by Night work. We talk to storytellers, we talk to players, we talk to other community members, but we also talk to movers and shakers in the world of darkness. And I can't tell you just how excited I am for the mover and shaker that we have on the show tonight. You may know him as Mr. Gone. He has been so nice enough to let me know him as Chris, and I am so excited to have him here. He's been providing resources to players, storytellers, people like myself for over 20 years at this point, and we have been graced, honored, given the chance to have him in our presence. So Chris, Mr. Gone, say hello, introduce yourself. So I'm so excited to have you. I'm so excited we could make this happen. And I want to give a big shout out to Rebecca, aka Mimic, who was able to put us in touch, was able to make this happen. And honestly, there's so much to talk about. Well, let me see. It looks like we have a muting issue on the desktop audio. That doesn't make sense. Let me see here really quick. Let's see. I'm working on it. Give me a second. Oh no, there we go. Okay, it's working.
It wouldn't be something I'm involved in without some technical difficulties.
Same here. Same here. It just happens all the time. But there's so much I could talk to you about, but I want to start with just how you got into this whole racket. And by this racket, I mean TTRPGs as a whole. How did you get involved in TTRPGs in any of this? When did you first discover them? When did you first hear about them? Did you have any preconceived notions about them before you got involved? When did your journey with tabletop role-playing games begin?
All right, so mine started in the early 90s, like probably a lot of people. I I grew up in a little small town in Texas, like in the middle of Texas near Waco. So like right in the middle. And not a lot of role playing, in small towns in Texas. So I knew of Dungeons and Dragons probably from the cartoon in the 80s.
Okay. Okay.
Um, never played it. But in the early 90s, so like, 1990, 1991, I was like super into vampires. I was like not quite a goth kid, but like goth adjacent, I would say. And so I was really into vampire, of course, Anne Rice,
I was gonna say that's the Anne Rice era.
yes. So, um, but I'm at a bookstore and I run across this book called Vampire the Masquerade. And I don't know what it is, but hey, it's about vampires, so I'll check it out. So I bought it and read it. And then, sort of realized like I don't even think you really realize just at the very beginning of that book what it is. And then you start getting into it and it's like, oh, this is what is the what is this? This is a game, the role playing game. And so I started buying more books, but had no one to play with. So I mainly just read them. Like I just read pretty much all the fiction stuff. Didn't really when it got to mechanics and rules, whatever at that time, I was
Right.
more just reading it. And there were some of the fiction, not like you've got like the Beast Within, that collection of short stories.
Yes, yeah. As well as
Like I
like the
read,
Fall of
yeah,
Atlantis novel
yeah,
series they released
yeah.
later, and yeah.
So I read all that stuff. So then, so cut to 1995. Now I go to college in Waco, Texas. I went to a technical school, Texas State Technical College, and I made a friend there who one day asked, he lived on campus, and he was like, if you want to come over and hang out sometime, you can, where he was staying. And so I went and hung out with him one day, and he had a bookshelf, and I saw on the bookshelf Vampire the Masquerade. I'm like, hey, you you know about this? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, have you played it? And I'm like, no. And he's like, well, then we have to. So then that's how I got into it. So I started gaming with him and his wife. And then we had some more people, sort of come in. And so all throughout college, we had a pretty decent core group. But I will say at one point, so I might fly all around the world here. So if I jump back and
Huh.
forth,
No,
just
please, please. It's an
bear with me.
amazing story.
Um, but so he ran it for quite a while. But then I played a character for a little bit, and then I was like, hey, I kind of have an idea for another character, and I'm like, so here's how we can get rid of this guy. Here's how you should kill this character off. So then I can now come in with a different one. And I probably did that like 3 or 4 times before he's like, do you just want to run this? Like, do you want to take it over? And I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, I don't know about that. But I did. And then so I probably ran it most of the time when we were in college.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And forgive the pun, but it sounds like you were kindred spirits.
We were, yep, we
Either way.
were.
But what was your first character concept? What clan did you play? What type of character build was it?
Okay, so this is gonna sound, looking back on it now, it sounds ridiculous, but at the time we had like a lot of fun with it. But my first character was a Toreador, but my friend ran what basically became a Dirty Secrets of the Black Hand game.
Ooh, okay, okay.
So the character that I played, his girlfriend was killed, before he becomes a vampire, and then he becomes a vampire and he gets roped into this whole thing with the Black Hand, and he goes to the Shadowlands. Yeah, they've got the Black Hand has Enoch, their
Mm-hmm.
secret base in the Shadowlands. So when he learns about that and he goes there, he then becomes obsessed with trying to find the ghost of his dead girlfriend.
Wow. That's amazing. That's
Yeah, so that
absolutely
was, I mean, it
amazing.
was, mostly like you get caught up in the whole conspiracy of the Black Hand, but on the side, that's what he did on the side was try to investigate what happened to her. And
Well, and that's jumping in
yeah,
head first into lore. Like that's
yes,
going in
I
the
know.
deep
Yep.
end because a
We
lot of
just,
people start out with just casual, getting used to the
yep,
Camarilla or getting used to the Sabbat or the Anarchs, whatever the case is.
no,
Black Hand, you're
we
going
jump right
deep. It took
into
me
it.
many years to even touch the Black
Yep,
Hand or go even close to that. But one of the things you had mentioned was that you really spent many years just reading the books, the lore. And
yep,
I think that's something that White Wolf and now World of Darkness has excelled at more than many other role playing games that I have, tried or
yeah,
been a part of. They really do put in a lot of effort into lore and telling a story. So it makes sense that you pick up
worthy.
the book, you read it, and you don't know it's
Yeah.
a game until,
Yeah,
several
until
chapters
partway
in.
in, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then like all the fiction too, like really kind of adds into. I mean, and of course, and I even read some of the more ridiculous, that got like really like overpowered, like the uh the Masquerade of the Red Death books, if you ever read
Yes.
those, where
Mm-hmm.
it goes off the rails in like a super crazy way. But I don't know, I loved all that stuff back in the
Oh,
day. It
for
was
sure. For sure. And
super power gamey looking back now, but
I loved how much they tied it into the real world. How the setting was the real world behind this secret society curtain, the masquerade
yeah.
behind, the shroud. And it made it so accessible. Like they used real life places, they used real life events. They had
Yep.
explanations for how the world of darkness was entwined with all of this stuff we'd learned about in school, all of this stuff that we were witnessing ongoing as the years were progressing, and
Yep.
I absolutely loved that about the game. So you
Me too.
started with a Toreador, but what is your favorite clan overall of all the
Okay.
vampire clans?
Of all the vampire clans, my favorite is Malkavian. I yeah. Yeah, there you go. Yep. It just I don't know what it is about it. I mean, and back in the day, we all have done this at some point. So like way back in, first, second edition, it's very fish smoke, they're all
Oh,
wacky
for
and
sure.
but I just really like kind of the low key, like where you can really dig into, like I hate to say mental illness, but like they're like, because I don't want to like make light of it, but
No, for
just
sure.
that aspect of it is
Well, it's a very like sociological, very psychological perspective on a character where more of
yeah,
what they're experiencing is on the inside. Whereas a lot of the
yeah,
other clans, it's a more reaching out, it's more, social manipulation, it's that kind of stuff. But the Malkavians, being the oracles, being the seers, have this entire different story that they're experiencing. And I think this was really, really well shown in the Bloodlines video game, which is, in my mind, one of the best RPG video games of all time. But
okay.
they
So
showed,
here's one of my dirty secrets. I have not
yes,
played Bloodlines.
oh,
I always meant to, and
so
then
good.
which we'll talk about a little later. But yeah, there are a lot of games that I missed out on, and that was one
Oh,
of them.
it's amazing. It's available on
Yeah, I
Steam.
hear
I
it's
definitely
good.
recommend it.
I still have my copy of it like on disc.
Oh,
I'm sure I could find a way to make it work
the replay value on it, even all these years later, is still
someday.
fantastic, still incredible. Definitely worth taking a
Is
deep dive into.
Bloodlines 2 ever gonna come out
They
or
are they are finally making strides. They're giving us they're going to be announcing the date hopefully soon, but it sounds like they have that project stalled out for a good 5 6
for a
years,
long
but now
time?
it's
Yeah.
finally coming back. It sounds like World of
Right.
Darkness has found a very, very solid foothold with Paradox, with everything. They've found their place, and now they're actually getting invested into, and it is supposed to come out. They've actually released gameplay videos now. So it
Oh,
does
nice.
sound like it is on
You're finally
the
making one.
horizon. But
Nice.
yes, one
One day I will get to it someday.
absolutely
I
worth it.
keep saying that, but one day I'll get to it. But I did play the old Vampire the Masquerade Redemption.
Yes. I
Yeah.
love storyteller mode in that game and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's fantastic. So what prompted you to get into what would become your namesake, your
Yeah.
brand, the character
The
sheet
character
making
sheets.
game? Where did that journey start for you? Because it started long
Yeah,
before PDFs and long before,
it
the
did.
website.
Yeah. So back in college, we got tired of photocopying character sheets from the back of the book because it's like you either have to, bend this book in a weird way to try to get something legible. You could cut that page out, but then, I
Destroys the
don't yeah,
book.
it destroys the book. And um so we were trying to come up with ways to how can we make a character sheet that we don't have to photocopy and ruin, something that seems close that we can use. Could we spruce it up? Could we do something different? So my friend had a copy of Word Perfect and Paint Shop Pro. So what we would do is we typed up the layout in Word Perfect, and we tried to, as much as you can do in like old school, like it's like had to been like Word Perfect 1.0, it's like super old. And so we would get something that looked as close as you could get to the layout of a character sheet from the back of the book. And then in Paint Shop Pro, we would find a page border that we thought seemed fitting. We would print that out, put the paper back in the printer, and then print out from WordPerfect our character sheets. And
That's
that was our first character sheets. That's what we made. Yeah, it's in WordPerfect.
and you've come such a far way since you actually launched your website, and we were talking about this before we went live. You launched your
Yep.
website in 2003 because I remembered in
2000.
my head in
Yep.
college printing off your sheets and using your sheets for easily the last 2 decades. But yeah, it was 2003 that you actually launched the website with the
Yep.
first renditions of the character
Yeah.
sheets. What prompted you to do that?
So in 2003, my wife and I moved from Texas to Indiana. She moved for work. Um, so for a year from 2003 to 2004, I was job hunting. And I'd maybe dabbled in the White Wolf forums, but I didn't have a lot to do in between, job hunting and interviews. So I was on the White Wolf forums a lot, a lot, a lot. And I can't quite remember. It's been so long. I don't totally remember, but I must have mentioned that I made character sheets for me because by that time, I was using Acrobat for me. Like I was doing stuff just for me. And I must have mentioned I could do it. And I think somebody asked if I could make something for them, and it's on a forum. So then somebody was like, "Well, you made something for that person. Can you do something for me?" Oh, sure. And then I've got to have some place to put this stuff. So that turned into you should start a website. So the first iteration of this my website was on GeoCities
Absolutely.
for a little bit, and then the the place that I ended up working, I made a friend there, and he had his own web hosting company, and so he's been hosting it ever since then.
And you one of the things that I think is the biggest heralding accomplishments, one of the things that I've used the most as a storyteller, as a player, is your expanded character sheets. Because a lot of people don't realize this. White Wolf, World of Darkness, they don't release those. Those don't really
They,
exist from them. Those are things that you have created and
I,
really brought into the
yeah,
forefront.
based on stuff they used to do, like back in the early internet. So the book would have a one-page character sheet in the back.
Right.
You might get a two, like Werewolf had a two-page one. Um, but every now and then on the old like circa 1995 White Wolf website, they had PDFs of some four-page character sheets. And so the layout of those are like I tried to be similar but improve upon. And so I still use a similar layout. But yeah, they don't do as much now as far as expanded ones. But for a hot minute, they did, and that's where I got the idea to do a multi-page.
So where did you learn how to edit PDFs, how to create and edit PDFs? Because in the old format, you could probably
Yeah,
make the layout and people would print it out and handwrite everything in. But then you
yeah.
eventually evolved and upgraded to making PDF versions of the site where people could actually type in the
Yeah, to
information.
do
How did you learn
right.
how to do that?
So I taught myself, but early on, so I would get character sheets from the White Wolf website, and then I decided for myself, I really want to tweak this thing, or I really want to do this. And so, this is a PDF. How can you edit a PDF? Can you edit a PDF? And so the place that when I lived in Texas, the school district I work for had a full copy of Adobe Acrobat, like a full version. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna use this. What can I do with this? And so I figured out how to do it in Acrobat, how to make little changes, and then that slowly turned into, can I make big changes? What can I do? I, so and then so funny enough, the version of Acrobat I still use to this day is Acrobat version 5 that I think came out in like 1998.
Yeah, we were talking about this, and
Still using it,
a lot
yes.
of people would be surprised to know
That's
that
my
you are
Yeah,
actually using a very, very outdated technology, supposedly outdated technology,
yes.
to make your PDF. So it's not even something that maybe you could teach to people who wanted to start doing it. It's something that you have almost this artifact that you
Yes.
use to make it work. Go
Yes.
ahead and kind of
And
detail that process so people can understand
so
just
yeah,
how
so
this works.
so it's like, this ancient relic of, the 90s that I'm still using. I For a while that version ran on Windows 10, but they've done some updates now it doesn't. So I had to stand up an old laptop with Windows 7 so I could still run it. So the laptop I make all my character sheets on now is Windows 7 with this Acrobat 5, and I have to use kind of an older version of Photoshop with it, because when you're working with graphics, Acrobat can export a graphic into Photoshop, but it's an old version of Acrobat, so I need kind of an old version of Photoshop sometimes. I can do stuff in a newer one, and then I can kind of open it in the older one. Um, but so the way this started to work is in Acrobat, even in a version of Acrobat now, it still works this way, even though it doesn't seem as intuitive to me, even though the tools are still there, sort of. Um, but so in Acrobat, you have all these different tools that you can use to do things, and you have what they call there's like a text box, and so you can edit, so like a line of text or a little box of text. Like I found looking at PDFs that a PDF would be made of hundreds of text boxes. Like whatever they use to export this, Acrobat translated this into hundreds of text boxes, right? And so it's like on my character sheet, if you go like to the skill section, right? Every skill, not including the dots, just the name and the line is a text box. The dots are a separate text box, right?
That's oh,
And
that's
so
so.
when you want to change something, like let's say you want to change the font, right? You have to do it line by line. Every line you have to go in and change. And then the font might be a different size or a different. So then it's like trying to you have to line things up right. So I use a lot of like sometimes the grid in Acrobat, or it's really funny. For years now, it took me a long time to realize I could do this, but when you're looking at when you're editing text boxes, there's a little tiny window that comes up, a little square window with some of the tools. And I found that that will stay up if you need it to. And so I've started using that as like, let me put this box in this place and I can line up to this, that. Um, but so I started doing character sheets. If I have to do something, like if I'm making one from scratch, I start with a text box from another PDF. a single text box, and then you just line it out and you just build down page at a time,
So you're basically a character sheet architect. You're having
Yes,
to line
yeah.
things up
You
on proper
basically,
lines, and
yeah.
yeah.
Basically, you're doing it all graphically. So, like, like in Word, you would just type a line, hit some tabs, type, go another line. Like you do it all like text with a keyboard. I mean, and you do text in Acrobat, but there's a graphical component too where you have to move that box around. And so, where I get tripped up with a new version of Acrobat is that in the old one I have, you place a text box on the screen wherever you want it to go. And then when I need to make another line, right? So like skills, right? I need one
Right.
skill and then one under it and one under it, right? So in my version of Acrobat, I can take that text box, copy it, and paste it. When I paste it, it pastes it right over top of it. And then I can just hit the arrow key down 12, 13 spaces, however long I want the space between the next line.
Right.
In the newer versions of Acrobat, it just pastes it wherever, and then so it's hard to line it back up. Whereas in mine, it's just right where I wanted it to be already, and then I can just move it around that way.
So really, you could
So
only do this with the older version of the
the one I'm
software to
doing,
make it
yes.
work. You'd
Now,
have to.
yes, I'm sure there's someone out there watching this right now that's screaming at their screen that I could use like Illustrator or something. That I'm sure there's something different that would probably work better. But I'm like 20 years in now, and I'm too late to.
You
It's too late.
found what works for you, and if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
How, on average, how long does it take you to make a character sheet? Approximately average.
Um, it kind of depends on how much I need to do from scratch. So it's like recently, like Friday, I guess yesterday, God, yesterday's Friday. Sometimes my days blur together.
I understand.
Yesterday I released um a bunch of character sheets I did a 20th anniversary Werewolf the Dark Ages. And there's like I did most of the tribes, so it's like I think it ended up being like 40 or 50 PDFs maybe. And to get those, it took me like maybe 2 weeks off and on, like a couple hours a day.
Sure.
So it mostly depends, but if I have to build one from scratch, like all the way, like I got to build it like totally brand new. Um, it could take like maybe 2 weeks, give or take. I mean, and
Sure.
that includes like, because so after I figured out like, okay, I can build these pages and put them all together, later on, I figured out how to do the interactive forms. And
Which
then
are
so it's like, yeah,
amazing.
yeah. So once you get it all built, then you can add on all the forms. And so then that takes some time too, because every form field, so every type in field, every dot you click, every interactive part of a PDF is a different form field, and they all have to be named independently.
Right.
Because if they have the same name, then they interact the same way. So it's like everything has to have. So it's like 500 dots, and 300 lines, and yeah. So it ends up being like a lot.
That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. Before we get to my next question, we usually do or giveaways here on After Dark, and I do have a very special giveaway for tonight because of our amazing guest that we are having this evening. But since we were talking about outdated technology and outdated
Oh.
things, I am offering up this copy of Chicago by Night. This is the original release from 2019. I believe Onyx Path Publishing released this one. I am offering a copy of Chicago by Night, the 2019 version. They've since re-released it again, but it is for free to somebody in the chat. If they put in the hashtag Chicago in the chat throughout the night, I will do a drawing at the end of the night, and they'll get this free copy of the 2019 Chicago by Night book. So
nice.
back to sheet making. So you say it takes you quite a bit of time to make a sheet. I assume when you do the clan specific sheets, that's just a matter of changing the graphics. Like you can change the logo and just make sure everything's lined up, and that probably takes not as long as building the entire sheet from scratch.
Yeah. Like sometimes, so It also depends too on how I want to do the logo across the top or the symbols or whatever. So it just depends. Like sometimes, like I think for a lot of the vampire ones back in the day, I did those with fonts. And so basically you could just like for the border, like this is gonna like it sounds stupid, but it ends up working like almost ingeniously. But so it's like if you need a break in the border, if you just import like a white box, just a graphic that's a white box, the background is white. So then you end up with a cutout, and then you can put a text box in there with the clan name, and then and you can scooch up that little white box, so it's right next to it. So it looks like the border's got a cutout for the name, but I just shoved a white graphic over top of, what was behind it. And
Yeah, I've
uh,
done all of my graphics editing on Paint. I know
yeah,
nothing about editing PDFs. Like, I don't consider myself technically dumb, but I also don't consider myself
yeah.
nearly on a level like yours. So when I'm editing images and everything, it's literally just Paint. I couldn't use Photoshop. Wouldn't even know how to
I'm
begin.
I've
Uh,
slowly over the years taught myself Photoshop. Like I'm still a super amateur, but there's things I'm learning, with layers and blending options and that kind of stuff. So it's gotten fancier over time. Just the tricks I've learned to get something to look right in a PDF. And you can kind of do layers. So newer versions of Acrobat definitely have like you can do a distinct layer. There's a layer like you can do like I think if like my fifth edition vampire character sheets, I use layers to do colors. So I don't know if you knew you could do that, but there's layers in there. So I think there's black, but there's also red because in the book all the clan names were done in red, and I
right.
couldn't decide if I wanted to do black or red, so I did both. So you can just pick a layer and it'll change the color. Um, my version of Acrobat won't do that, but there still is some layering. Um, and although I can't import it's really weird. I can't like open a graphic in Acrobat that has like transparent, but I can edit that graphic and make it with transparencies. So then you can like put it in the background or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
overlay the sheet over the image, which I've seen a few of your sheets have. They'll have like the logo in the
Put
background.
the logo in the back. Yeah.
Yeah,
So and sometimes the way I do that, so when I get like I don't have like a template per se. Like a lot of times I have like I do templates for every game. So it's like werewolf, the border is a little different size, so things can go out or in more than a vampire one. So basically I've made myself templates for all the different games. And then so if I need to do a clan sheet, I basically make a template, and then I make another PDF that has the border with the clan name and a symbol or whatever, and then I can copy all of that and then paste it behind the character, the template I have, save it as a new file. And
right. Oh, that's incredible. That's I mean, my
yeah,
brain is melting because I don't quite understand it, but it
it
it makes sense. The way you're saying it makes
yeah,
sense. I'm
I
just like
generate a lot of files now,
that's
like a
so
lot of
much work.
files,
Oh,
because yeah.
absolutely.
Because it's
One of
like
my,
I say borders for all of these, and then I keep all of this stuff too. It's like because you never know. Like I guess I'm at like a digital hoarder, so I keep all of this stuff because I never know when I might need it again.
absolutely. One of the coolest sheets I've seen you make too, and that's available on your site, is the site where, or the sheet where almost everything is blank, where you allow people to fill in skills for any time period. Because obviously we had
Yep,
Dark Ages and we had Masquerade, we had Victorian era for a short while, but
I've done a few of those.
they're
Yeah,
pretty limited. You know, you're gonna have to homebrew some things to make it work. For example, Wild West, unless you're playing Werewolf, you would have to adjust. I love the fact that you have a place where you can fill in all of the skills yourself. You can decide what skill set you want
yep.
to use. I think that's so clever because it is a
I've
universal sheet for everyone.
yeah, I did. I can't do it for what we might call like classic World of Darkness, so Masquerade and Werewolf and all that stuff. The system, like I can do an independent one. So like for Vampire, I can do one where you can type in the skills, and I can do one for Werewolf. For Chronicles of Darkness, what used to be New World of Darkness, the systems for all of those games were very similar.
Right.
They basically used the same type of power stat and fuel stat and morality stat. They just named them different. So I have made one for Chronicles of Darkness where everything is interactive. The titles are interactive, every bit, and it's basically just like all the lines are still there to write in, but all the skill names are interactive and all the headers are interactive, and so basically you can like completely customize it.
Absolutely. I was not okay. This isn't going to be popular with certain folks, but I was not a big fan
Yeah.
of Chronicles of Darkness only because I had gotten so attached to the lore of the old edition. However, I will say that one of the best things to come out of Chronicles of Darkness is that in 5th edition, they've incorporated that same philosophy of the systems not being too different. That they do
Yes.
kind of keep the same dice rules, the same pools, the
I
same
like
type
that.
of mechanics between all the different splats, which is something that they did not used to do. You could not play werewolf and vampire at the same time. It was just completely different mechanics, different system. But now they've
That
made it so much more accessible across splats.
it's funny you should say that because back in college we used to run mixed
Oh,
games.
for sure. We
And you
try.
had to, yeah, you had to, so then it was like, okay, well now I got to read this book or now I have to know that book. And like most of them, like probably the big three were easy enough to run together.
Yes.
I always got tripped up when it was like, hey, I want to play a Wraith or hey, I want to do a Changeling. And it's like, oh
Hunter,
no,
or
how the
yeah.
hell are we gonna, how are we gonna include that?
It was just so
Yeah.
much to accommodate for and to consider in trying to do those cross.
So I do like that that they're kind of going with a similar system.
Yeah, they've made
For
it very streamlined.
New World of Darkness, so it's funny because New World of Darkness came out in 2004. So I'd been making character sheets for original World of Darkness for a long time, but only publicly for like a year. And it's like I'm just getting started with this now, and now there's a whole new we're doing something new. And I was, so I was like a little, I don't know what I think about it.
Yeah, they
When
put
it
you through the
came
ringer.
out, yeah, when it came out, I liked the idea of where it's like, hey, the main rule book is like for mortals. And then, all of then you
Hmm.
apply like the template or whatever. And I like that idea of it. But when it came to some of the games, I thought like if you're gonna reboot it, like it just seemed too samey.
Right.
And I was like, why don't they do something different?
Absolutely.
They eventually did, like the second edition versions of most of those games, like I think they did, it got better. But I ended up just really liking the mortal part of it.
Absolutely, and that's
Yeah.
something that I feel like they've reflected really well in 5th edition as well.
With
Is that
Hunter.
they have made
Yeah.
mortals. They've made
Yeah.
mortals the most dangerous part of the game, honestly, and I think that shows in the
Yeah.
fact that Hunter was the second book they released. Is they're trying to say, hey, mortals have a stake in this now. They're not just the
Yeah.
victims of whatever's going on. They actually have a threat now, which goes along really, really well with the story that they're continuing from the beginning, where in the beginning vampires were effectively gods, mages could change reality, werewolves could destroy pretty much anything in their path. Now they're making humans an actual legitimate threat, an actual problem to all of these supernatural things that are slowly like dying off and weakening. And I do think that's a
I think
really,
that's
really
cool.
cool
I like
addition
that.
that they've added.
I've done
So,
too in some of my games before. I haven't done it all the time, but a few times, and they seem to like it when I did it. I started off the whole game as everybody being immortal,
yeah,
and then
I've
they
done
got
it before.
embraced in the course of the game, but they didn't get to pick.
Nope, me.
Like you're just immortal, and here's what we're doing, and like, but they all ended up loving it.
I've ran a
I did
few games where I've had them draw from a hat what they would end up being. They'd come up with their character concept, and then I'd be like, okay. And they'd pull
yeah.
from a hat, and whatever they got was the clan they ended up being, regardless of their character build.
Not World
Because
of Darkness related, but I ran a superhero story using the Aberrant rule system, and I had everybody just start off as normal, and they didn't get to pick like what their superpowers were going to be either. I was like, I mean, it makes it sound me like very controlling as a storyteller of, well, I'm going to decide what you are, but they ended up like they all trusted me enough to run with it.
So we talked about this a little bit before we went live, but I want to kind of circle back to it because I know one of the biggest questions those in the community would have is why aren't you working for them? Why aren't you working
oh,
with them? Why aren't you creating sheets for them? Because your sheets are so useful, so accessible, and so just overall incredible. How did it happen that you didn't end up employed by them? And then what you told me actually came as a surprise. So go ahead and
yeah.
tell that story for everyone.
Okay, so I have kind of a windy story, so just bear with me and you'll see. Did my camera
It
cut
did
out?
go off, yeah.
Sorry about that. Let me see if I can get this
That's
going
quite
again.
all
I
right.
don't know. Are we back?
Not quite yet. It's all gray for me right now.
Whoa, I don't know what happened.
Malkavian may be your favorite clan, but I think you have some Lasombra in there as well.
I was gonna say that's my second favorite.
That
All right, well
absolutely
I
makes
don't know
sense.
what this is doing. Let's just try this. I'm gonna unplug it, plug
Okay.
it back in and see what happens. I've never had it cut out like that before. That's super weird.
That's Zoom for you. There we go. Perfect. You're
Hey, we're
back.
back. Okay, so bear with me. I have a very windy story about this.
I'm excited.
So 2004, New World of Darkness comes out, and they launch their new website. White Wolf launches a new website. And then I would say, and then I've been doing this for I don't know how long, or since 2003, but I'd say like maybe it all kind of blurs together in my mind now, but maybe 2006 or 7, somewhere around that time frame, maybe. Um, from being on the forums, I was semi-friendly with some of the people that worked for White Wolf at the time. A lot of them posted, so I was kind of friendly with them. So I had their name escapes me now, but I had somebody from White Wolf reach out and say, "Hey, we really like what you're doing with all these character sheets. Would it be okay with you if we hosted some of them on our website, on the White Wolf website?" And I'm like, "For sure, that's fine. Like, that's cool." And so there was a couple back and forth, but that guy left off with, anytime you want to send something over that you want to put on the site, just send me an email and we'll add it. And I don't think he knew what he was asking for, because then I was doing stuff because I just was, it's just a constant stream of stuff. Like I've constantly had people ask me to do things. It's things that I thought was good enough. I'm going to put it on my website. So we should, so I started sending him emails, tons, to the point he finally emailed back. He's like, "Hey, here's what we're gonna do. I'm just gonna set you up an account. You can just upload everything you want yourself. Just you go ahead, whatever you want to do. We'll give you access. You go ahead and do it." Okay, cool. So I did that for a long time until that site died, basically.
Right.
Like until they switched it to something else and they stopped hosting files like that. Um, so cut to when Vampire 20th Anniversary Edition is they announced that they're going to do one, you know, and it's going to be the last Vampire the Masquerade book. That's what they said. We're going to do a 20th anniversary one. It is the last one. There will be no more Vampire the Masquerade books. This is it. So I emailed everyone I could. Every person I knew that worked for White Wolf, I sent them an email. And I'm like, what do I need to do to make the character sheet to go in this book? Like if it's going to be the last one, I need to make the character sheet to go in this book.
Absolutely.
So they were cool with it. And so there was a lot of back and forth, and I did some like some mock-ups, and they sent me like some graphics that they wanted to use. There's a lot of back and forth, and But I got it built and sent off to them, and everybody was happy with it. And so on my end of it, so and the book isn't out. Like I'm done with my part. There's still, it's got to go off to the printers, and they're still doing whatever the finishing touches or whatever. And also too, they asked me to write. I got to write a little blurb at the beginning of that book. You know, they put all the little
Yeah.
all the little fan, or like people that work there, or different like little fans or whatever, that I got to write a little blurb. So I wrote a little thing to go in that book too. So that was cool. So the character sheet's off. I'm done with their part of it. I'm doing my part of it now, because it's not enough that I'm gonna do just the one. I've got to do all the different clan ones, and I got to do, so I
Yeah,
got
you're not gonna go in
yeah.
partial measures. You're gonna go.
So yeah, when it comes out, my site will be ready. So I get, because I'm doing all the clans, all the bloodlines. I'm like, because there's so many of them too. So I'm like probably 40 clans and bloodlines in that I've made character sheets for already. I've generated all these files. I notice at the top of the character sheet, I've got all the attributes, right? And it should be, strength, dexterity, stamina, manipulation,
Charisma,
resolve. And, and I'm like, that's not right. That should be appearance. Why does this say resolve? Oh no, and then I start looking back and it's wrong. And I'm like, because I did so many, New World
right.
character sheets at that time that it wasn't appearance, it was resolve. No one caught it. I sent an email, what can we do? And they're like, nothing. It's off to the printer. There's nothing you can do. And I'm just like, no, oh
No.
no. And they're like, well, the ones that people are no one's going to use the one in the back of the book. They're just going to use whatever. So just send us the updates, and, future versions, if there are any, will have it. Everything that people are going to download to use will be corrected. But it took me so long to go back through and correct all the character sheets I
Oh,
did. I
sure.
was just like, oh no. But no one, like, I've told the story, but no one ever noticed or caught it, or so it ended up being a big deal. But all right, so anyway, so that was it. I got my name in the book. I got to write a little blurb and the character sheets in the back, and that's the last vampire book that was ever going to be, until they decided, hey, this sold really good, and we want to do, we're going to make more. So I reached out to, it was probably Rich Thomas, but it could have been somebody else. But so they're going to do the companion. And the old vampire companion had a 4-page character sheet in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I reached out to them and I'm like, I made a 4-page character sheet when we did this. Do you want to use it? Would you like to include it? And they were like, we don't know if we're going to have room for it. We've only got so many pages. We don't know if there's going to be room for it. They're like, but thanks. Okay. So it comes out, and I think the last, like, you've got all the pages that are backer credits, which I get. But there's a couple of pages in that book where they talk about things they didn't include in that book. And I was like, what?
Just use those pages.
Just use those pages. Anyway, whatever. But after that, they did start emailing me and asking me, we've got a Kickstarter for this, and do you want to do, like, it kind of started off as they wanted to do special character sheets for backers. If somebody backed at this level, they could get a character sheet that had they had somebody like design character portraits, and can you redesign this character sheet a little bit to have a spot where you could put a picture in there just for backers, And so I did that. And then they were doing Kickstarters for a lot of New World of Darkness stuff. And it was, do you want to do character sheets for this book? Or for the Kickstarter for this? Like, do you want to do this? So it got to the point where I was like, it kind of got to the point where I felt like they weren't asking me anymore. They were just sending me stuff to do. And so I was like, hey, I'm cool doing this. I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but like, is there any possible way, like, can I get paid for this? Like, it takes me, quite a while to put all these together. And they were like, well, of course you should get paid. And they're like, sorry, yes, definitely you should get paid. And so then I had a different point of contact, but it was always they would tell me what they want to do, and then I would send them an invoice and then get paid. Until it kind of started where they would ask me to do stuff, and I would send them invoices, and then I would send them an invoice again, and then I would send them an invoice again, and then maybe eventually I would get it. Eventually, and I did that for quite a while, for a few years. Most of the New World of Darkness stuff was me. Like, I did the character sheet, the one that went in the book, and then of course all the extra stuff that I do. But eventually, and I'm not for sure if the timing coincides with, like, because at that time it was Onyx Path. It wasn't White Wolf anymore. That was
Right.
all gone. It was all Onyx Path at the time that I was working for them. And so I don't know if the time where it kind of petered out, if it was when White Wolf was coming back, and like, because I don't know any of the behind the scenes stuff of that. So, but it got to the point where they just didn't send me anything else to do.
Well,
So
historically,
I
too, the
just kept
company's
doing
passed
stuff.
hands so many times, even just since Fifth Edition was released. There was Onyx Path, and now there's Paradox, and it's been
Yeah.
shifted around a lot. And I know that one of the big things that they had was a publisher, trying to find a publisher until they found Renegade.
Had a lot
And
of
so,
problems, like the company that the I don't know, he's not the owner, but whoever that dude was, there was a lot of problems behind the scenes with the original Vampire 5th edition, like just the people
hmm
behind the scenes running it. They all got ditched,
yep. And they've had
you
to
know.
release errata for all the old books. They've had to reprint all of the books again in a lot of ways for re-release
Yeah.
to update them and get a lot of those issues fixed. So yeah, there were definitely some behind the scenes management
So
issues that seem to have
some of
been
that could have been
settled.
there.
Yeah.
Towards the end too, I noticed that they were sending me character sheets that I guess they made in house, and they just went, we just want you to make this interactive. Here's the character sheet we made. Just make this one interactive. And then I'd be like, okay. But then, okay, but now I'm going to do the one I want to do.
Yeah,
So
I'm
I
gonna
would
do
do
my
my
version
own. I'm going
still.
to do my version still. So yeah. But yeah, with the way it all changed hands, I don't know. And I don't know if it coincided with what was happening behind the scenes there. But eventually they just kind of stopped asking.
Right. Right. So, for those
I
of you
mean,
out there who are
yeah.
possibly outraged that our dear friend Chris, Mr. Gone, isn't making money, I do want to take a moment to promote his Patreon.
Oh,
He started the Patreon right at the beginning of the pandemic ish, and it is the best value you're going to get. While you can get most of his sheets for free on his website, pretty much all of his sheets for free,
yeah. I try to
you
make sure. Yeah.
yeah, you can sponsor Mr. Gone by just joining the Patreon. And here's the crazy part, everyone. It's $1 a month. It is literally $1 a month. Or if you sign up and prepay for the whole year, you can get it for like $10.80.
Yeah, they
So if
started
you
doing that
have
recently where you could do like a whole year at a discount, and I was like, oh, I might as well give people the option.
absolutely, so you can sponsor Mr. Gone and all the work he's been doing for the last 20 plus years. If you've downloaded any of his sheets, if you've used any of his services, go and give back. Go join this Patreon. It's patreon.com/Mr. Gone. You can sign up. You can pay for a whole year for less than $11, and you can be benefiting our wonderful guest and this amazing, amazing, resourceful individual who has made the gaming experience so much better for all of us. So, speaking of how you've made the
Yep.
experience better, the pandemic happened, which caused a lot
Yeah.
of us to have to kind of turn to a more
Yeah.
virtual way of playing. And the PDFs have been honestly a godsend. I don't know how St. Pete by Night would exist, how most online Vampire the Masquerade games would exist if it wasn't for the PDFs that you provide. Uh, do you have any kind of idea of how much traffic your site gets, how many downloads you get
Um,
from the site, or anything like that?
you would think I would, but I don't. I guess I haven't really paid too much attention to it. I have to. I guess I'll have to look at the dashboard of because I don't host it. My friend hosts it. I mean, and I can sign in and upload stuff, of course. I should look and see like what the stats are of it. I don't really know.
I'd
I
be
haven't paid
very
a ton of attention
curious.
to it.
I'd be
It's got to
very
be quite a
curious.
bit.
It's gotta be, because I know, speaking from this community alone, your sheets are
Yeah,
our go-to. That's
it's.
where we send people to get copies of the
I
character sheet. That's the one we hand out.
I do know my website is getting close to like 22 gigs, and that's all just PDFs. I mean, PDFs aren't super big, so
Well, and you also take requests from people for
I do.
custom sheets. So you not only
Yep.
have done World of Darkness and variations on every possible thing you could think of for World of Darkness, but you've
Yep.
done Kids on Bikes, Kids on Brooms, a bunch of
That was all
homebrew
me too.
games.
No one asked me to do those. I just did it, like, because I thought it looked cool, so I did those. There's a game out. It's like an indie game that's like loosely based on the movie Empire Records, which I love Empire Records. And I had a
Oh,
friend tell
sure.
me about this game. It's called Damn the Man, and I saw they had character sheets for it, so I made some very minor adjustments and then made it interactive, and I put those up.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's incredible. I looked at the list of games earlier today, and there
I
were
did.
easily 2, 3 dozen games on there that aren't World of Darkness. They're
Yeah.
just
Like,
passion projects.
yeah, we briefly talked about it. I briefly ran a game called Dungeon Slayers. It's like a free old school dungeon crawl. And I did interactive character sheets for it, like just for me to use because I wanted to play it. And I put those up, and it was free when it came out, but the website for it's defunct. So I'm posting that now if anybody wants to check out Dungeon Slayers. Um,
Absolutely.
but I've done character sheets for another free game I really like called Risus,
Okay.
Risus, and it was done as like a very super rules light system, and it's got just like the character sheet is basically just like a card, and I did a few versions of that, but I included dots. You know, all the World of Darkness character sheets have
Mm-hmm.
dots, so it's like to keep track of the number of dice you needed for this game. I'm like, I should just do dots. So
It's so
yeah, so I've done
simple.
yeah, character sheets for that, but people have asked me to do some for other games. I've done some officially for a few games, like legit, like they paid me to do it.
St. Petersburg by Night is brought to you through collaborations with our partnered vendors: Wolfpack Dice, Ember Fox Dice, Dragon Ink Dice, Bear of the Bard, Champs Tramps, Panchi Artista, and Chromatic Creations US. Links to our partnered vendors, as well as our Twitch and YouTube channels, can be found on our website, stpetebynight.com. The official theme song for St. Petersburg by Night is Vampire by Faith and Failure. You can find them at faithandfailure.com. You can follow SPbN on all socials with the hashtag StPeteByNight. If you wish to support our program, you can do so at ko-fi.com/stpetebynight to help keep the stories rolling.
So,
Um,
Mimic in the chat actually asks, what are some of the requests you've had to say no to?
oof, too many. Which I'll touch on it again. Well, let me just let me start with this before I tell you about some I
Please
have
do. Yeah,
not done.
absolutely.
But anybody who sends me an email, I have at least considered, even if I haven't been able to do it for years. I still have requests that I did not get to from like 2005, way back when, and I feel super guilty about. There's just not enough time, and so sometimes I just can't. Um, Occasionally, I've had people ask me to do stuff for games that I don't know. So I haven't really done too many for like Dungeons and Dragons. I've had people ask me, and I just don't know enough about it to like improve it. So they're like, "Hey, we like the way you've improved World of Darkness character sheets. Could you make an improved D&D sheet?" I'm like, I don't I know World of Darkness and I know what I can change. I don't know anything about this game. So it's like if you want to tell me what you want, and like sometimes I need people to be like really specific, like move this here, put this in this place. Like if you can do that, I'll try my best to do it. But so like I've kind of turned down, like people have asked me some D&D stuff and I haven't done it. I think I had somebody ask me very recently. It's still on, not super recently, but like maybe a year or so ago, to do for Deadlands.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they want me to try to combine like two or three like elements from two or three different versions of Deadlands, and I don't know anything about that game, and it just looks like a nightmare to me, and I don't know what to do.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. Go with what you know. Don't
Yeah.
push yourself too hard.
So
What?
there's that. I mean, and I have done like mostly World of Darkness stuff. I don't think I've really turned down too many related to that. But I've even had like some crazy requests that I have done like way back in the day. I think I had somebody, and it's on my website now. I think somebody wanted me to do a mage slash ghoul slash possessed slash kinfolk. It's like four
They
things.
wanted you to do the Samuel Haight character sheet. Okay, I understand. That
Basically,
that
yeah.
totally makes sense. Oh my
Which then I did
goodness.
the character sheet for that too. I did make one.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, one thing that people I know, especially amongst our community, is going to be shocked to find out, and I was shocked when you told
Oh,
me, you haven't played in a game in a decade. In almost a decade. You haven't
probably been
actually
like 10 years. Yeah.
been
Maybe,
able
maybe.
to play or run a
Yeah.
game or participate. And yet you've
So,
been keeping up with everything. You've been keeping these sheets coming out, but you
right.
haven't played in over 10
So,
years.
right. So also too, so prior, like even still, I mean, growing up or whatever, I played a lot of video games. So I was a big video game player, and I played for a long time until I started getting into making character sheets. And then like I when I first started making character sheets, I role played. I had a group at that time and we played. And but people just sort of, with work or whatever, like things happen, people go. So it's like slowly it just started dwindling and I wasn't role playing. But I was just spending so much time trying to like keep up with people asking me to do stuff and the stuff I wanted to make, even though I wasn't playing. Um, I for a long time I didn't play video games either. So it's like almost like we had a PlayStation 3, and I've got a ton of PlayStation 3 games that I never played for years, years of games. Like even on PlayStation 2, there's games.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's just I just couldn't make time. Like I just spent like as much free time as I had trying to keep up with character sheets for the website. And I'm not begrudging anybody that's ever asked me to do anything. I'm the one I could say no. I'm doing it, so I'm not really blaming anybody. But yeah, I just got really behind, and then your group slowly falls apart and people move and it's hard to get people together, especially when you're an adult and everybody's got families or whatever, and then it just sort of stopped. So the last thing I ran was Dungeon Slayers for my kid, who's not a kid anymore. My kid is 23 now. Um, but he was younger. He was, like maybe not middle school, maybe early high school. I can't quite remember. The years blur together now.
Oh, of course.
Um, but he wanted to get into role playing, and they were thinking about D&D, but they weren't sure. So I'm like, I've got this. I know this game, Dungeon Slayers. We'll do that. It's an easy, and then if you like it, then you can move into something else. So I ran a little bit of Dungeon Slayers for him, a couple of my friends, and a couple of his friends. until I did maybe 3 or 4 or 5 sessions of that, like, over the course of a couple months. So then they started to wanna play their own. They wanted to do it themselves. He wanted to run it. He asked me if he could run it. But he wanted to tell me about all of his ideas and what he wanted to do, so then I couldn't play in it.
Couldn't get the full
So I
experience if you
was
know
the
what's going
yeah,
on both sides of the curtain.
which was fine. I mean, eventually, who wants to play with your dad? I get it. You know, uh, but Dungeon Slayers was probably the last thing I did. Maybe prior to that, there were a couple of people I knew online that were supposed to come to get together in person, and it all fell apart. And after that, it just sort of, again, there's just not enough. I don't have enough hours in my day sometimes. So,
Absolutely.
um,
Well, and to
but
run a
starting,
game, I think people forget that it takes so many more
yeah,
hours than just playing because you got to prep, you got to know
yep,
the system, you got to do all these things, you got to correspond with players. That there's like twice as many hours, if not more, that you have to
yep,
spend into game time. So that's an extra, responsibility.
yep. So in 2019, my kid went off to college, and I decided that I was going to try to start making time to play video games. We had a PlayStation 4 that we'd had for a little bit. And I decided, like, I'm going to make time to do this and play some games. So ever since then, since like mid 2019, I've been making time at least a day, usually more than one day a week, for an hour or two playing games. So I got caught up on some of the ones I missed. I even played a couple on PlayStation 2 that I missed. Um, a couple of PlayStation 3 games. I had one PlayStation 3 game I absolutely hated, and I really regretted that I played it.
Oh no. What game
Yeah,
was that?
Heavy Rain.
I've never even heard of that game.
By this company, man, who I'm trying to remember who makes it. They've made a bunch of different games, and I absolutely hated it. The gameplay was awful. Quadratic Dream, I think, is maybe the name of the company. They made a few. I think they did one like Detroit Become Human. I think that was a big
Yep.
one.
Yep.
I just hated it. The story, I hated it by the end of it. And like it just made no sense. Like it just seemed like, because it's kind of supposed to be like a murder mystery kind of deal. But then when you find out like who the murderer is at the end, it made zero sense. And
Ugh.
so I just like, okay. Most other games I played have been good though. So
What was your favorite game so far that you've played? What's kind of your top of the
okay,
mountain or top five? It doesn't even have to be
yes.
just one because I know picking
Okay.
favorites is tough.
My current all-time favorite video game that I have ever played has been recently. I say recently, I played it a bunch of times since it came out. Death Stranding.
I haven't heard of that one either.
It's Hideo Kojima.
Okay.
Norman Reedus plays the main character of the game. It's set in like a post-apocalyptic America. The so the core gameplay sounds, when I describe it to you, will sound super boring, but there's something about it. Um, but it takes place in this. There's been an apocalypse, and all of these people. There were cities. There's not so much now. There's all these people spread out in all these little like bunkers basically. But there are some cities, and you've got basically what's left of the government is trying to rebuild America. And the character you play is a porter, and he essentially delivers packages from one place to another, and he's trying to get everybody connected over this network they call the chiral network. So he's trying to get all of this stuff connected up. Aside to this, there's like ghosts sort of that you can't see, that are there. Um and there's a ton of lore behind it. The game is long. It took me months to play it. Like it is a long that when I wasn't too sure about it at first, there's a lot of cutscenes very early on. And so not knowing what I was getting into, I was like, is this just cutscene the game, or
It
you know,
sounds right up my
but
alley,
but
honestly. It
once you get
sounds like
into
it
the core
has,
gameplay,
yeah.
it sucked me in. And I've played it like 4 times now. There's a
Oh,
sequel coming out next year, I think, maybe, hopefully. But it's great. Death Stranding.
okay. I'm going to have to give that a shot. Although I will tell you, that may be unseated when you play Bloodlines for the first time, because when you do sit
Okay.
down and play Bloodlines, that game,
Yeah.
so good, so good. I can't recommend
Yeah.
it highly enough. It is by far my favorite RPG. But
So
those are
Death Stranding, I could talk all night about Death Stranding. The Spider-Man games, like the PlayStation 4 Spider-Man
yeah, great
and the
game.
new one, great. Love those games. Um, I played one not too long ago called The Outer Worlds,
I've
and
yes,
that
yes,
was
okay.
good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm playing Fallout 4 right now. I've never played any of the Fallout games, but my kid started me on Fallout 4. I've been playing it since like December, I think.
Man.
Um, what else has been good? Like Jedi Fallen Order
Yep,
and Jedi Survivor are both really good.
that's
Um,
incredible.
I've just played a ton of stuff. Like on PlayStation 3, the Infamous games are really good. So I
Yep,
played the new one on
Infamous.
PlayStation 4, Second Son. I thought that was really good.
Ah, you have fantastic. One of our
Yeah,
people asked, Modern Artifice asks, have you played Planescape Torment?
I have not. Should I add it to my list?
Apparently so. But if they're
Okay,
asking, it should go
I
on
should
your
add it.
list. Um,
Yeah.
well, I can say for certain, it is an absolute tragedy, a travesty that after everything you've done for the community and the gaming, the TTRPG world, that
Well,
you are not in a game.
stop
So
playing.
you,
I do like that I get to like keep my foot in it basically. Like I'm not out. I'm still in it. I'm just making characters. I'm just letting other people play. And so I'm trying to help other people with their games. That's my
what helps you keep that passion for it though? Because it is a lot of work. You are spending time out of your day, not making, not
yes.
getting paid to do it, not really, getting
There
the recognition you deserve, I think. What keeps you
there
going in that if you're not even a part of the playing aspect of it
right.
anymore?
There are I have had times, not a ton, but every now and then I'm working on something or I'm just about to start some big thing and I'm just like, what am I doing? I don't want to, why am I doing this? I don't want to deal with this. But then I'll get an email from somebody that goes, "Hey, I really like what you're doing, and we've used a ton of your stuff, and your character sheet really helped with whatever we were doing, and it helped us get into it or whatever." And that's what keeps me in it. When people say, "I like what you're doing," some people just find it and like it, and some people have been using it forever. Or I've even had some where it's like they were out for a while and they're back in, and they're like, "I didn't even know you were still doing it." And like I quit and now I'm back and you're
Yeah.
still here. So I like that. So I keep doing it for that. Even though there are sometimes there's things I don't want to do, but I just have to do it.
Well, I can tell you,
Yeah.
speaking for myself and the hundreds of people we've had pass through my community, like we wouldn't exist the way we do if it wasn't for the work you've done and how appreciative we are of all of the effort you put in. I mean, you've made so much the game so much more accessible to so many people. You've made it easier to teach, you've made it easier to learn, you've made it easier to
Yeah.
play, and we are
Thanks.
endlessly grateful for the work you do. And you always have a seat saved for you in St. Pete by Night. If you ever decide,
Thanks.
even for a one shot, you want to try
Thanks.
and dip into it, learn V5 or whatever the case may be, you are more than
Thanks.
welcome to join us. We would love to have you because you're a hero. I mean, to put it
Thanks.
simply, you're a hero to the
I
gaming community because of what you do.
Yeah, like I said, I just tried to fill a niche, I guess. Like for whatever reason that boggles my mind, a lot of role-playing games, the character sheet ends up being an afterthought. And it just didn't matter, and they just put well, we got to put something out, so it just doesn't work, or it doesn't look right or something. And I try to make sure that because the character sheet, like for a lot of players, I mean, there are a lot of players even back in the day, they did not have any of the books. They just came and played the game. And the only, like they've got their interaction with the game is the person running it and their character sheet. And so I
Yeah.
just try to make a character sheet that can sort of invoke whatever mood the game is while still being functional. So
Well, and it makes the characters feel so much
Yeah,
more special when they have their bloodline sheet or when they have their clan sheet. Like it
something customized
gives
and
this
yep,
extra special taste of the game that, like, yes, we're all together in the fact that we're all using the same system, but there's something to be said for picking a certain clan, picking a certain tribe, whatever the case may be, and to have something tailored to that tribe, to that clan. Just that it does make the game extra special, and having the multi-page character sheets is priceless, because we
yeah.
talked about it a little bit before. They don't give you enough space, and even with your sheets, we take all of the space
There
we
are
can
times
get
as much
because
as you can.
it's
Yeah,
yeah, it's such an amazing, amazing service that you offer, and you do so with so much humility. You do so with asking very little in return, and so I can't tell people enough that they need to go. And I'm going to promote this again. Go promote this. Go provide for this. Support this Patreon. It is the best deal you can get in all of gaming, honestly. Like for what you're getting in response. $1 a month, or you can get the whole year for $10 and like 63 cents or something like that. So go support the
try to.
Patreon, patreon.com/Mr. Gone. Please, please, please go support it, because that
Yeah,
we can't thank you enough. We can't thank you enough for
thanks.
everything that you've done. It's absolutely incredible that you've done so far. Before I get to my next
Uh,
question, though, I want to mention our giveaway tonight. I'm giving away a 2019 copy of the Chicago by Night book, that came back from Onyx Path Publishing. So put hashtag Chicago in the chat. And if you're in the US, sorry, people who are overseas, but if you're in the US, I will ship this to you for absolutely free. Hashtag Chicago in the
oh,
chat to be in the
thanks.
running for that. So was
So
there?
just to
Yeah,
say
go
real
ahead.
quick, on the Patreon, I try to check in, let people know what I'm doing if I can. Sometimes some of you gotta like tease it a little bit. Sometimes I'll post a preview of something I'm working on. I just try to like check in every now and then. If you're gonna pay the buck, the least I can do, is like just let you know what I'm doing. I mean, sometimes I don't have a lot to report. So it's just I've had three people ask me to do something and that's what I'm doing. Here's what I might be trying to do coming up. Or if I have a
Absolutely.
preview, like when I just recently did the some 20th anniversary Dark Ages werewolf character sheets, and I posted up a preview of that.
Right.
Just to and then it was like a couple weeks later I finally got them all done, and most of them I'm still waiting on some stuff to finish that project out. So I've had a request for something. I'm in the middle of something now, and then I'll get back to Werewolf the Dark Ages, but I wanted to put out what I had because I think they look really cool. So
Well, and honestly, you've done so much. What else could we ask of you? Honestly, like
it's
what you give
funny to
away
me
for
sometimes
free.
that
Like,
every now and then I go, what else is there? What else is there to make? And then somebody will email me with something, hey, I didn't see this or I don't see that, and I'm like, okay, I guess I didn't do it all.
one of the questions we got actually came from Double Magus, who's watching right now. Do you have the 5e sheets for other splats started already, or do you just wait for the specific details, or do you wait for the books to actually come out first? Like for Mage, which we all assume is the next big release for 5th
Yeah.
edition. Have you already kind of started on something for
I
that, or
Well, it's funny. So I think for Mage and Changeling, I've had people ask me for their games they wanted to run. They had some ideas of what they wanted to see, and so I've done those.
okay, okay? So you're kind
Um,
of waiting for the actual
Kind of
releases
waiting
to
to
try and
see,
do.
yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Just because I don't know, like it's hard to say what they're gonna be or what they're gonna do. Like I
Yeah,
think back before, before Vampire the Requiem came out, I think I tried to make like we got some hints, of what it might be, and I think I put out a character sheet for it, and then it ended up being like nothing, like almost nothing close to. So I tend to wait and see, but I try like if there's trying to remember if we got a preview of the werewolf sheet right before it came
we
out.
did. Yeah.
And I think I started on it then. And then by the time that came out and I saw the actual sheet in the book, then I was mostly done. Because I think I got it out pretty quick, like maybe a day or two after it was done. Mine was ready.
Absolutely.
Um, So, like, if I see previews or whatever, I'll start on it and see. But usually I end up having to be like, kind of, I gotta wait. Or every now and then, I guess, like, well, I guess they're not really doing, because they're not really doing Kickstarters for that anymore.
No.
But back in the day when they were doing Kickstarters for some of that stuff, people would be like, "Hey, we got the backer preview and there's a character sheet. Here it is. If you want to get started, you know." So I had that.
Well, that's good. So you did get kind of advance notice. People, but
Yeah,
that's
sometimes.
again,
Yeah.
that's how you are the go-to person for this stuff. Like people want to get your version of things out as quickly as possible because it is so valued, it is so
Yeah.
useful, and I can't sing your praises enough. Like after 20 years of using your
I,
products, like it's
yeah.
so important to running a game.
I will say, for me, one of the things that's gotten harder, maybe over time too, not necessarily about getting stuff out on time or doing stuff ahead of time or whatever, sometimes keeping up. So back when, well, because New World of Darkness was out, I was still making character sheets for Classic World of Darkness. So when I was doing all the interactive forms, one of the big things that everybody loved were drop down menus. So you have a drop down menu that's got everything in there, right?
Yep.
So the problem is so I make one character sheet. I've got one main vampire character sheet, and I add in all of the drop down menus, everything I want. And then that becomes my template for all the clan character sheets. And then, so suddenly that one gets turned into like 40. Well, in 2 years, if somebody decides, well, I really would have liked to have seen this in the drop down menu or that in the drop down menu, or now we've added, there's like a whole new thing. So now it's not just one thing to update. If I want to do it, it's, 40 or 50 and so
Absolutely.
sometimes I just don't do it.
No, that
Like,
makes sense.
but I, if anybody watching this doesn't know, I try to make sure everybody knows. All the drop down menus on my character sheets, you can also type in.
I was gonna say that. That's one of the
So you
great
can just
features of
add,
it.
yeah, yeah. So if there's not something there that you want, you can still just click in that field and just type it in.
Yep.
Not a lot of, some people don't know that. Some people do, some people don't.
No, it's a great feature of your sheets is that even
I
if
do
it is a
like that.
drop down menu, you can customize it to be something that isn't included in the drop down menu. And that's been,
So
again,
try to
super
hit a middle
valuable.
ground of that. So sometimes if it's something big that I think needs to get added, I'll do it to like the main one. I might not hit all the clan ones, but like just
Right.
the main one, I'll update that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what's
Yeah.
a request that you've gotten or a project that you've worked on that you ended up regretting doing? And this was a question from Mimic in the chat that you
Oh.
ended up because it was so much more work than you had anticipated. Like you did it, you finished it, and then you were like, man, that was more work than I thought I'd signed up for.
Hmm. Don't hate me, but sometime there was a time, I think maybe it was maybe it was with where, not that I regretted it. I don't think I've ever regretted anything I've ever done, but the sometimes for werewolf, you've got the werewolf themselves are fine. But it's like when you get into, people want all the changing breeds too,
Yep.
and sometimes they're all so different. And so there are times where it's like, I did all of them for revised. And then when it was time to do 20th, or like I did all of them for revised, and then I did all of them again for Dark Ages. And then it was, now it's again, and 20th anniversary comes around, and now I'm doing them all again. And like that's all just that different that it's like making a whole new one every time. And it's like, man, I'm doing this again.
Oh,
And then,
for sure.
and then no one asked me to make these 20th anniversary Dark Ages sheets I'm doing. I just started to do it. And then I got like partway through, I'm like, who asked for this? Oh yeah, you
Oh,
did.
that's right. I did it.
I
Great.
did. Um, I'm trying to think of something that I just regret. I don't think I've ever like really regretted anything. There have been times where I'm just like, I don't want to do this.
Hmm.
Why am I doing this? But I know that it's gonna help somebody.
We appreciate it.
They
We
need,
appreciate it
they
every
they really
time.
need it, and I just need to get through it. I'm not the one using it, but somebody is gonna use it.
Well, and the things that I
So
found on your site that I didn't even know I needed, like there were coterie
yeah,
sheets and domain sheets and NPC sheets where you could have multiple NPCs in the listing. Like it was so incredible to be able to go and find that. Your site has become a go-to bookmark for me of when I'm looking for something. I'll be like, okay, let me check World of Darkness. Nope. Let me check Mr. Gone. Yes. And I'll grab whatever I need from there. That's how I discovered Caldorian's rules for Werewolf. That's how like I've it's such a valuable resource. Any
well,
serious World of Darkness player needs your site bookmarked because it's so important.
and like you said, I take requests. So if you don't see something you want, you can email me or message me or whatever, and I'll at least consider it. Again, I've got requests that go back for years that I feel awful that I haven't got to, but I do try to. And sometimes I just need it to be something that will interest me. Like, I mean, because sometimes I'll just do things just because somebody asked for it, but sometimes somebody asks me for something, and I'll be like, "Oh, that I I'm shocked I don't have this. I like that idea. I'll do it." So that helps too. But yeah, if there's something that anybody out there wants and I don't have, you can ask me and I'll try to do it.
Absolutely.
If it's within my power to do it. Occasionally, my hang up is even still after all these years, I'm not very good at making my own graphics. I can edit graphics perfectly, I think. Well, as perfect for me as I can get. Like I can manipulate something. But if somebody's like, I want something totally brand new and I want it to look like I need a border that looks in a certain way, I'm not as good at doing that.
Right. Right.
So occasionally I got to reach out to people. Hey, do you have any ideas? Can you do this? Or um, just, like I need, like for Werewolf, like all the 20th anniversary Werewolf sheets, I had somebody created all of the logos for me, like in that sort of like metallic bronze. Like I reached out to somebody and they made all those for me.
Well, I may be touching
So
base with you about a modified werewolf sheet composing both the Caldorians and the. We'll talk.
yeah,
We'll talk.
we'll
But
talk. Let me know.
uh,
Yeah.
for those who are, interested in working with Mr. Gunn, it probably helps to be a Patreon subscriber to prioritize your
I've
work in
had,
his
yeah, I try to,
list.
yeah, if somebody asks me for something on Patreon, I try to do it. So,
Absolutely. So if you're not a Patreon subscriber, go be a Patreon subscriber if you're going to ask for something. I know we already got a request for you to do the Laws of the Night character sheet, the official one. So I'll put them in
oh,
touch with you or whatever the case may be for
okay,
that. But yeah,
sure.
absolutely. I think that it's invaluable what you do. It really, really is, and it is very, very much
Thanks.
appreciated. And I
I'm
can't.
just glad that I can help and that I've been able to do it all this time.
Uh,
It, like my kid was, when I started doing this, my kid was like 2 years old. Now they're
20 years later,
23.
20
Yeah.
years.
They're 23 now. And so I've been doing it their entire life. I mean, to the point that for a while, like, so they were running Dungeon Slayer before they started playing because they moved on to D&D. Before they started doing Dungeon Slayers, they wanted to change that character sheet up for whatever they were doing. And so they talked to me about doing it. And so I tried to teach them how to do it. And they sat with me and did some things, but ultimately it was like, well, can you just do the. So like I ended up doing stuff for that too.
Absolutely.
But yeah,
That's
their entire life I've been doing this.
what is
It's
your
it's
favorite TTRPG of all time? Walks the Web, Anonymous in the chat asked, what's your favorite TTRPG? I mean, World of Darkness has to be up there with how much
it's
work you do for it.
it's Vampire the Masquerade. That's my favorite one.
That makes
That's what I
sense.
started with. It's still my favorite. I mean, I might be biased. I got to do the character sheet in the V20 book. I like that version a lot, even though I have not run anything with that version of the game, but I know a lot about the 20th anniversary version. Um, but Vampire the Masquerade is my favorite. Just old school, like first edition,
Hmm.
weird, crazy Vampire the Masquerade. That's my favorite.
Well, maybe
Um,
one day we can get you to sit down for a V5 and see what your thoughts are about the system, because I'd be very curious to hear what your thoughts are comparing the old to the new.
I
And
need
it'd
to
just
look
be good to
through
have
that
you in the game
more.
again. It blows my
Which
mind.
we briefly talked about it. I need to look through the fifth edition book more. it seems a little schizophrenic, maybe the layout of that book.
The
It's
book
very
is,
weird.
yes. The
The
book is
system
not.
I hear is really good, but the layout of the book itself seems very odd to me.
That is one of our biggest gripes amongst the staff is every time that they release a new supplement or something, we're like, who's editing this? Who reads this through and says, oh yeah, this totally makes sense. Like you do have to jump around so much. And so we've made so many documents to try and
Like
streamline
cheat
it, to make it,
sheets,
to
yes.
skip it. Like, okay, just go to this page if you want this thing. And then you never have to look back at it again,
Yeah.
just because of what you're saying. So the books themselves are frustrating, but the system and the gameplay I have found to be more streamlined than ever. And that's fifth editions of games across the board, D&D,
Yeah.
Vampire, like they've
Which
just done such a good job with it.
I don't know if I said either. I'm not crazy about the official character sheet for 5th edition Vampire.
I don't blame
That's
you.
why I did mine like I did, which, and I don't want to say like I painted myself in a corner, but I started like I don't really care for that one, but I did one in a similar style, in a more what I would call like a minimalist style, which I thought looked better. But then I had to
Absolutely.
do one that was more like a classic look. But then I started doing like I did like a requiem. I did one that looked like a requiem sheet, and I did one that looked, like I did a few different styles, and then that carried over. And so when Hunter came out, I did it in like two or three different styles, and I think I did werewolf in like two or three different styles. So I sort of like box myself in of now I have to give people all of these options.
Oh
I
man.
can't just, because I want people to use it. So I've got to make what I think they might use. And some people for fifth edition want that minimalist style. They don't want one that looks like an old masquerade sheet. They want something that looks not exactly like the one in the book, but closer. So I have to, okay, here's one that I think is better, and like just the layout of it. I think the layout of that sheet's a little weird,
You're
and
not wrong at all. You're not wrong at all. It is. I
so
mean,
that's how
this
I came up with
is.
mine. I mean, I talked to some people that had played through it a couple of times, and then they were like, like I'd really like all of this stuff together, or all of this stuff together here, or this doesn't need to be on the first page; it can be on the pack, or so. I try to do that just to make sure that the flow of it made sense, that everything was kind of where you would want to find it. So,
Yes. No, and that's the sheet that is our go-to is your layout versus any of the minimalist layouts because it does help keep things organized. And I think people take for granted that maybe it doesn't require as much inventory management as D
right.
and D, but you do need a lot of like you have different sections, especially when you get into Tremere or Banu Hakim or anything like that, where you get rituals and blood magic and all this other stuff. Like it's just really nice to have it organized and in the places you expect it to be versus whatever random location they decide to
Yeah.
put it in.
Oh, okay. This sparked my brain. I don't know what made me think of it. Like one thing I'm about to say leads me to something else, but I say recently, but it's been a year or two ago, maybe. I had somebody, I had a request to make a werewolf character sheet, like a Werewolf the Apocalypse character sheet in the style of, I think, a 20th anniversary vampire sheet. So it's the vampire fonts, it's everything, but it's a werewolf sheet
Huh.
but it looks like a Vampire the Masquerade sheet. And it was the weird, like just making it was weird because I had to do the logo in that font, and I mean it's got the forms and everything. Like it's the same layout as a normal werewolf sheet. But yeah, it looks like a masquerade sheet, and that's like one of those things that, and I think I put it out, and people were, I think, not. I'm trying to remember. I thought it was going to be a thing, and then nobody like. I kept expecting like there was going to be a flood of people to ask me, but I had a couple of people go, "Oh, well, you should do a this in the style of that," and I
Oh,
thought it was going to be a whole thing, and I was just like, "What did I do?"
you opened the
Now,
floodgates. Oh
yeah,
no.
but no one yet has asked for it. Maybe they'll hear this and they'll be like, "Oh yeah." Um, but for whatever reason, this reminds me one of my favorite things that I did, that it makes me laugh every time I see it, because not a lot of people know, I guess, that it was me. because it's just circulated the internet now for years and years, and it's mostly just it's just mostly just like a JPEG. It's fuzzy because it's been saved over and over again. Somebody censored it at one point, but there's a character sheet for Kane for Vampire the
Yes.
Masquerade
Yes.
with the you lose,
Yep.
and I made that.
You
Total
made that?
Yes, I made that.
I
Some
love that sheet so
Yeah.
much.
It's from the old White Wolf forum. Somebody asked me to make it as a joke. They had the initial idea, and then I came up with the whole thing. And then I made it, and it's just so every now and then, like every couple of months, it'll come up on a Facebook post or something.
It's so
And
great. It's
cracks me up
so
every time I see it.
great. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. I love that that's yours too, because I have used that image so many times, and I just, oh, that's fantastic. That is so fantastic.
Yeah.
Well,
That was me.
yeah, I mean, I could ask you so many other stories, but I've taken up so much of your time tonight already, and I really appreciate you taking
Oh,
the time to do
thanks.
this. It has been an absolute blast having you as a guest, and I can't, just speaking for everyone in the chat, people that I've met and played with over the years, like, thank you so much for everything you do. Like,
You're
you have
welcome.
been a
Well,
blessing to storytellers, to players, to people discovering the game for 20 years now, and it's we're so grateful that you keep
well,
doing it.
and I'll say thank you to everybody out there who has enabled me to keep doing this. I'll phrase it like that, because if nobody ever asked me to work on anything, I probably wouldn't be doing it.
Oh man,
Like, just because, like, I did it for me, and so when I was playing, like, all the stuff I did was just for me until I started doing it and it became, for everybody else, and now it's just for everybody else. So thank you to everybody who uses it. I love it. I'm glad that everybody has put all this stuff to like such good use. I'm glad that I could help, even if it's just in a tiny way, that I can help everybody's game.
well, I can tell you we're going to be using it long into the future, like indefinitely, because it's been such a valuable tool. And I have some requests for you that I'll make
Okay,
myself, because
sure.
like I said, it's just been so beneficial to us. And I can't state again that if you ever want to dip your toe back in, if you ever want to try a game, I know 6 storytellers alone that would love to have you, even for a one shot, to bring you back in, because it is just a crime that you have not been able to enjoy the community that
I
you've done
I
so
might have
much
said
for.
it. I feel like I get in my head about it sometimes. So I was never sure that I was a great player, and then I really liked storytelling, but then I was always never sure, like, was that, is that really good? Or are they just telling me it's fine? Or I guess they played with me for so long, but you
Well, if you ever
know,
want to run a game, I'd love to play in it too. So
okay,
whatever the
yep.
case may be, if you ever excuse me, want to jump in again or even try it out, I know that we would love to have you. You are such a valued part of this. You are one of the biggest movers and shakers in World of Darkness in my mind to this very day. I've been following your work for 20 plus years, and I know that everybody really appreciates so much that you've done, and
Thanks.
can't thank you enough for
Yeah,
everything you've done.
you're
Uh,
welcome. Well, I'm glad I could help.
Before we get to a couple of final questions, I'm going to do the giveaway now for the
Yeah.
2019
Oh,
Chicago by Night book. This could be yours if you've entered hashtag Chicago at all in the chat tonight. You are in the running for this book. This book will be shipped out to you hopefully by the end of the week by me personally. I will get this in your hands. So thank you so much for the people who've been watching along tonight, and entering into the giveaway. So the winner of the 2019 Chicago by Night book is JBell90. So JBell90, you've won this book. Get in touch with me.
nice.
You can message me on
Congrats.
Twitch, or you can message me on Discord, or whatever the case may be. Send me your shipping information, and I will get this in the mail to you ASAP. Congratulations to JBell90. For some rapid fire questions for you before we have any final
I'll
thoughts. And
I'll try my best to answer.
one, I believe it was Mimic who asked, Rebecca who asked, what's your favorite craft brew?
Whoa. Wow, that's a big question. Um, Let me think. Okay, so I'll say that my favorite style of craft beer, I think, is like an imperial stout.
Okay.
And if you give me a barrel aged imperial stout, I'm there. Um, but I guess maybe like one of my current favorites is there's a brewery near to me. They're in Bargersville, Indiana, so it's close to Indy, called Taxman. And they do every year in April, they do a beer. It's gone through several different names because I don't know, like legal stuff. Currently, it's called Deadline, and it's a barrel aged stout. They do several different like variants of it. It's good. I like it.
Okay. Okay.
I also
Uh,
like Dogfish Head does like a 120-minute IPA. I'm into that one too. It's you can only have one though, and then you're done because like it's a pretty high ABV, so you can't have a bunch of it. But I like that one too.
Kyrie in the chat says, check out Big Bad Baptist if you haven't already. Uh, yeah, people are talking about Imperial Stout nonstop. I don't know anything about it, but
I have had that.
oh, there you
I
go.
have had that. I had that. I'm almost positive I had somebody ship it to me for a hot minute. I'll say a hot minute. For a few years, I got kind of known, sort of. So it's like I've always joked, with character sheet stuff. People tell me I'm famous on the internet. I got a little famousy too in craft beer stuff. I used to do a lot of trading. There's a brewery near me called 450 North, and just before they got like super popular, I was shipping that to people. But yes, I've had Big Bad Baptist. It's really good.
Second question for you. And I don't know how rapid fire this is, but we're going to ask it
Okay,
anyway because I
well, it's
said I
okay.
would. What do
Yep.
you do for a living? If it's not technical, I'll be shocked. You said you worked for a school
Okay,
system once upon a time. What do
I
you
did.
do?
Okay, so I went to college for, all right, initially, when I started my degree, it was called computer maintenance. So basically, IT, like fixing computers, like actually opening them up, changing stuff out. Like that's what I did. Because who knew at that time that you basically like wouldn't be doing that anymore, that you just throw them away when you were done? At that time, it was who's going to buy a computer and throw it away?
Right.
Uh, so I went, when I started, it was computer maintenance. When I partway through, they changed the name of the degree to computer systems and networking. So that's what I have a degree in. So out of college, I did for not quite a year. I did tech support, so like just a phone tech support. Which funny side story. I'll try not to ramble too much
No,
about this.
go. We got all the
Funny
time in the
side
world.
story. This company I worked for that I did technical support for was for an internet company, and they eventually shut down, and then we were all out of a job, right? But the
Right.
last probably, I don't know, almost 2 months. So when we would do the tech support, we sat in front of a computer. Not that we were helping them remotely, because this is, like late 90s, this is 1998. We're not doing anything remotely, but we had a computer in front of us so we could say, click here, do this, you'll see this window, that kind of stuff. So we've got a visual in front of us when we're walking somebody over the phone, we could tell them what to do. Well, as the company was shutting down, they took all that stuff, but we still had to take calls. So I had to just walk people through it from memory and just be like, here's what we're going to do, so you just have to bear with me. Um, but after that, I worked IT at a school district in Texas, in Fairfield, Texas. There was like a head of IT and then me. I did all the IT for the entire school district. Um, there was a guy that came in that worked on the network side of things, like on the servers. He came in like once or twice a week. But for all of the hardware, it was me. And like every classroom had like 5 computers, and the teacher had a computer. So it's like 600 computers and just me to work on them. When we moved here to Indiana, I did IT at a Lexmark shipping warehouse, um, mostly second and third shift. And I worked there for like 4 years until just about it was closing when I found another job. My current job now, my job title is Lab Systems Administrator. I work for a little pharma company, um, and I basically administer one of the softwares they use in the lab.
That's incredible.
So
That's
just a
incredible.
software administrator, basically. Like that's what I
Yeah, okay, so it
done
had to
that
be in
for.
tech for all the things that you
Yeah,
do. It
I
had to have some.
yeah,
That's absolutely amazing.
and I've been
N-
there for 16 years.
Next
So,
question,
hmm
completely different topic.
okay.
What's a clan or tribe or any World of Darkness subsect that you've wanted to play but you have not had the chance to yet?
Hmm. I guess I would say that I have not played Wraith before. Sort of. We included it. I've included some Wraith elements. Like I really like the idea of like the Shadowlands and all that stuff. I've not ever really played it, and I think it would be interesting too. It just seems like the barrier to entry of that game seems like hard. Like it's hard to kind of wrap your brain around it, and but I always thought it seemed really cool, but I've just never played it, and I always thought that would be.
Wraith is actually the splat I'm really hoping they release for 5th edition because I loved old Wraith. You were right, the barrier for entry was very high in the older editions, but with the way they've been doing Wraith or the 5th edition books so far, I really hope they do a Wraith splat because
Be a
I
little
loved
more
that game. I
a
loved
little
that game.
easier to get into.
Yeah.
I think it was cool. I'm trying to think of some clans that I never really played that I thought would be cool. Um, I've done stuff with Lasombra that I thought was cool. I've done a whole Tremere game that I thought was really cool. Um, I played a Toreador was my first character. That was cool. I guess I've never really done like I don't think I've ever played a Gangrel before, and I always
Okay.
thought it would be cool.
Yeah.
Never done that. I haven't really played much werewolf either, so like I've
I
got
found 5th edition to be way better than the old editions, so
okay,
maybe I could convince you to try some werewolf at some
I
point
should
because
look
it is a
into
lot
it.
of fun. It's a
Like
lot of
I,
fun.
like I like I had somebody ask me like my favorite werewolf tribe. I like Bone Gnars. I think that seems cool. Um, but I have run werewolf sort of like when we had a big mixed game. I didn't get to say this earlier when I was in college running games. We had a little core group and there was probably like maybe 6 or 7 of us like regularly. But there was a time for maybe 3 or 4 sessions where I was the storyteller for like 20 people, and it was I don't know how did I do it. Like I don't know how anybody runs a game for like that many people. It just looking back on it, I'm horrified. I don't know how I did it,
When I
but
started
it was
this
a big
server, I
mixed
was the
game.
story.
Everybody played something different. There were werewolves in that game, there were vampires, there were, like we had a few different things.
We had 90 people sign up for this server when I first started it, and I was the only storyteller at the
Oh,
beginning. I
whoa.
feel your pain.
Okay.
I
Well,
feel your
I guess
pain.
20
No, no,
people isn't
20
that
is a
many
lot.
compared,
That's
but
still a lot. I don't. Oh my god, it's insane. But I feel your pain. It's so much to manage. But yeah, it's oof. That's a lot. Okay, so what is a TTRPG, non World of Darkness, that you've wanted to play but haven't had a chance to try out yet?
hmm. Let me think. Because I briefly, way back in the day, I played Shadowrun for a hot minute. We played Cyberpunk for a hot minute, like all the cool '90s games we played, for a little bit. Um, Maybe the newer Star Wars role playing game.
Okay.
Like I played the West End Games one back in the day, but I never played the newer one, so that
I
might
haven't
be.
either. I played the D20 one, but I haven't played the newer one.
Yeah, yeah. See, I didn't even do the D20 one. Like I said, we did the old Westing games where if you played a Jedi in that game, there were times where, it's like a D6, and we had times where we were rolling, like 30 or 40 D6. You
Yeah.
got like a big handful of dice that um but the newer Star Wars game might be interesting. I've never played D&D, so maybe
Oh, really? Never even tried it.
no, I've never played like I played that game Dungeon Slayer, so it's like adjacent sort
Yeah.
of. But I
Yeah.
never played D&D itself, so maybe.
Okay. That's interesting because that's been a lot of people's access point to other TTRPGs. Most
Right.
of the people I've brought in here started with D&D because of the pandemic. I mean, we're talking about people who've only
Yeah.
gained 3, 5 years at most, and D&D was their access point. So it's interesting to meet somebody and talk to somebody who never played D&D ever.
No, never did.
That's very
Even
cool.
all the other games we tried, yeah, it was always like we mostly just played World of Darkness. That was my favorite. It's been my favorite. That's kind of my go-to.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's my favorite with a bullet. Um, have you ever played Magic the Gathering?
I have not.
Okay,
It looks very intimidating to me.
it's expensive.
Not, I will say that it's probably not even the same thing, but in my mind, it's adjacent. I recently last year played Ascension,
Okay.
which is like that deck building game,
Yep.
and it seemed kind of intimidating to me, but I ended up really liking it. So I even bought like a 10th anniversary edition of it or something. And it's, because it's not like um you're not really like playing against the other players, you're playing with them. And it's a deck building thing, but it's all like you're not none of the cards are like collectible, I guess. Like I've never really
Right.
gotten into any like the collectible card games. I will say just to mention it, my current favorite like board game, card game kind of deal that I play probably more than anything else right now is called Flux.
Okay. I haven't played
Anybody's
it.
heard of it? So I'll give you the pitch for it. There's a ton of different versions of it. So they've like reskinned it for different things. So there's like a Cthulhu one, and there's a Batman one, and there's a monster one, and there's all these different ones that they've skinned it for all kinds of different occasions. Um, but the crux of the game is the core rule. The rules of the game change as you play it.
Ooh, okay.
So it's a card game, right? And the rules are basically everybody starts off with like three cards. They're all these special cards, right?
Right.
And the rules start off, you draw one card from the deck and then you play one card, right? And then as you play, the rules can change. So you have different goals, the criteria you have to meet to win the game. The goals can change, the rules can change. So it all is in flux as you're playing. It's great. And I love it. It's like my current favorite card game.
That's fantastic.
It's put
Uh,
out by Looney Labs.
okay. I'll have to check it out then because it sounds like a
Yes,
lot of people in the chat love that game, so I'll have to
I
give that one
recommend
a
it.
shot.
Yep.
And then finally, have you ever played Warhammer before? These are all things that are very popular in the
Yes.
community, so I have to do my job and ask it.
Yep. I have not played Warhammer. I know of it. I say I know of it. I know very surface level Warhammer. Although I have seen that movie Ultramarines, that
Okay.
animated. I have a Blu-ray of that. It's a cool. I don't know how many people have actually seen it, but oh, this reminds me too.
Mm-hmm.
Slight side story. This has
No,
nothing to do
do it.
with
Do
Warhammer,
it.
but there's a game called Mutant Chronicles.
Okay.
The role-playing game. They made a movie of it. So I didn't know anything about the role-playing game. I'd only seen the movie. Um, but I got contacted by the company, somebody from the company that puts out the role-playing game, and they were talking to me about making a character sheet for that game, and then I never heard back about it. So
Oh.
ultimately, like it fell through and I didn't get to do it. But yes, but there's a movie of it called Mutant Chronicles. I think Thomas Jane is in it.
Oh, okay. Huh.
Yeah. Um, but it was a role playing game, but I didn't really know too much about it. But I almost got to make a character sheet for that game. So,
Oh, that's incredible.
um,
Well,
but Warhammer, I know a little bit about it. I know it's super popular.
yeah, I would
Uh,
have had to ask what army you prefer to play with. I don't know anything about it. I just know it's super expensive because you got to
it looks
buy all those
expensive.
minis and
Yes.
stuff. But
Yes.
Chris, thank you so much, honestly,
Yeah.
for everything that you do. I said it several times on here, but I feel like it's still not enough. Thank you for joining us tonight and taking these
Yep.
2 hours out of your night and spending
Oh,
it with us and answering
it
so
was
many
fun.
questions. And it's been an absolute blast. Again, always have a seat at whatever table I run because I feel like I owe you so much. Just as a
Eh,
storyteller, that I'd love to play with you or play in a game you're running or have you play in a game I'm running, whatever the case may be. It's just been such an honor and such a privilege. And so I want
thanks.
to remind everyone that they should go support Mr. Gone on his Patreon, patreon.com/Mr. Gone. It's $1 a month. $1 a month. Close to $11 for the year. So go support Mr. Gone on that Patreon.
And I'll say too, don't feel obligated. If you just go to my regular website, it's cool. As long as you're using it, that's the important thing. So,
well, I'm obligating you. Don't listen to him. I'm obligating you to go support. Also, you can follow Mr. Gone, Chris, on his social media. I've got the Twitter located there, which is twitter.com/MrGoneV6. But he's also on Instagram at Mr. Gone V6. So you can go give him a follow and see all the amazing thing that he's doing and posting and up to.
I'm on Threads. I'm on Blue Sky. It's all at Mr. Gone V6.
So you can find him
Facebook,
everywhere.
I'm on there. If anybody, I'm in like a lot of the, like I post in a lot of the like World of Darkness Facebook groups.
Yeah, so go follow Mr. Gone and support him because he is, and I'm speaking like you're third person, even though you're right in front of me. He is such a vital part of this community, and it's been an absolute joy and pleasure talking to you, and I can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this. But thank you all so much for watching tonight. Go follow Mr. Gone, and then follow us at St. Pete by Night on all the social media listed down below. And this week we've got... Tomorrow, we have Bloody Strings, the next episode of that VTM Chronicle. On Tuesday, we've got the next episode of Rage Across Tampa, the Werewolf Chronicle, where we're going to see the after effects of what happened after the jailbreak. On Thursday, we have Don't Get Caught, our Anarch Chronicle. On Friday, we've got What the Hell Is That, our Hunter the Reckoning Chronicle. And then next Saturday, come join us for another After Dark, where we are going to have the players from the Good Girls Blood Coterie joining us to have another table chat. So lots and lots of content every week here on the St. Pete by Night Twitch channel. So go check it out. But for our dear friend Chris, Mr. Gone, I'm Kent. Thank you so much for watching tonight. And we'll see you guys next time. Have a good night, everyone.
Yep, thanks.
This has been a St. Petersburg by Night production. After Dark is produced in agreement with the World of Darkness and Dark Pack. The host for After Dark is Kent. Visit our website at stpetebynight.com for more information about all of our podcasts and how you can become a part of our community. Thank you for listening. Until next time, fangs, stakes, and claws out.